All right. Hey, Sam. Um, Want to just tell us a bit about who you are and what you're up to?
Totally.
Awesome.
So I'm Samantha Casuga. I'm originally from Calgary, Alberta. Used to live in Victoria. And now I'm currently residing in New York City, where I'm working at the Dead Rabbit.
Awesome. And how long have you been at the Dead Rabbit?
So this past May was my second year anniversary, so just over 2 years.
Okay. And could you take us back to the moment you realized you wanted to be a bartender? Could you just tell us a bit about that story, where you were, and if there was some sort of aha or some sort of spark that happened that kind of like set you on this journey?
Totally. Well, like most of us who started in hospitality, I definitely just kind of like picked up hosting shifts at a wine bar and then just kind of worked my way through it. Realized I really liked the hospitality industry and wanted to stay in it. When I moved to Victoria, I started at Veneto as a server's assistant. And that's where I met Simon Ogden and
Hmm.
the rest of the crew. I didn't know immediately that I wanted to be behind the bar, but I really enjoyed it. And I thought it was really cool that like cocktail culture was this elaborate, and I had no idea before this. Um, I did continue working at like wine bars and then started serving and then managing eventually. And I didn't really realize I liked bartending until I was literally just thrown into it. And I think, as soon, especially in Victoria, the community was so small, being like another female bartender and like another keen young bartender, Sean, Sewell, and Simon just both took me under their wings and definitely showed me that this could be a legitimate career. And then since then, when I joined Veneto with Simon, he really helped me see that this is a legitimate career and it could really take you places. So I think that's when, I wouldn't say it was like an immediate one-time aha. It was definitely like over time, and then
Yeah.
fully realizing just how vast this industry is. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so you've come a long way. I mean, Veneto's a great bar, but now you're at one of the best in the world, Dead Rabbit. Could you tell us about just some of the steps you took to get there?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people ask me this. It comes up in conversation all the time, especially, it's like, how did you end up at Denver? How did you get a visa? Well, I mean, unintentionally or not, it started as soon as I started bartending. I found great success immediately, whether it be, because I worked really hard at it, but I just feel like it was the right time, right place, and I fell into the hands of the right people.
Mhm.
Yeah, I worked my ass off, but I also, stayed humble, and I did the appropriate steps, and I was patient. After Veneto, I did actually go back to Calgary, and I was managing a program there.
What bar was
And I
that
just
in Calgary?
so that was at Native Times in Calgary.
Yeah.
But it was my friend's restaurant. We were about a year and a half delayed, so I was able to kind of bounce around and work in different bars in the city, which was great because I got to learn the industry there and learn the community there. And that helped a lot. But really, essentially, like as I started bartending and up until even now, I'm still doing it. I was competing a lot. I was, really putting myself into any opportunity that came. So immediately started bartending. Sean had his book come out. He asked me to be a part of it. Of course I said yes. Yes.
Mhm.
I attend every sort of training, any sort of program out there, educational for bartenders. I just did everything I could. When I was in Calgary, I started traveling more into the States. So I was doing any of those programs like Camp Runamuck, Bar Institute, Tales of the Cocktail I was going to. Um, I'm a very social person. I think all bartenders are, but I was definitely just putting myself out there. And that helps a lot because once it actually came down to coming to New York, which I'd always wanted to do, I was so prepared for the visa and for what it needed that, it wasn't seamless, but it was a lot easier for me to get everything together and get everything prepared. So, getting a Dead Rabbit, obviously it took me, I did bartending by this point, but for just over 5 years. It took me 5 years to get prepared to make a big move like that. But it was definitely just over time and just being diligent and I just kept at it the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. And have you worked at any other bars in New York City?
No.
Okay.
I do. I actually have a part-time brand ambassador role, which is pretty cool, and that's
Oh, yeah, for
totally
who?
new for me. So it's a aloe liqueur coming out of California, so it's not available in Canada yet. But it's a small little brand that's super awesome. We're a very small team of brand ambassadors, all bartenders. But even that, having Chirot under my belt as well just really helps me in the industry. I meet a ton more people than I would by just bartending in New York City, and I have so many more opportunities just because I've taken on another project.
Yeah. So, well, that's actually a great segue because my next question, I just love to hear about a bit about the day in the life of Sam Casuga today. And I mean, like if you're bartending, I'm not sure how often you're bartending, but it'd be great to get a picture of a day in the life and also just what your whole work-life balance looks like.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, okay. I feel like I'm just starting to really, really figure it out now. Like in the past 6 months, I've really figured out my work-life balance, like not to a T yet, but it's really coming along and I'm really happy about it. A typical day in the life for me these days, I work a lot. With a part-time brand job, you don't really have a set schedule, so you kind of just fit it in where you can. I'm at Dead Rabbit about 4 days a week, but I do pick up a lot, so I'm there quite often. And when you do work in the parlor at Dead Rabbit, it does require a lot of extra time. So we have R&D. We usually run R&D for about 3 months per menu flip. So we flip the menu every 6 months. So we're in R&D quite a bit. But
So, sorry, like research and development?
Yeah. So because we come up with all of our cocktails as a team,
Mm-hmm.
we collaborate. It'll be once a week for about 3 hours. And this is when we come up with our ideas and present our cocktails, and then we work on them together. So that's another, not a shift, but it's another commitment that has to be done if you're part of the team. And then we also have monthly trainings for Dead Rabbit and Blacktail. And then on top of that, there are just extra ones that are kind of like thrown into there if you can attend. So a typical day for me is I wake up. I really try not to sleep in too much, even if I work a really late
What
shift.
time? What time do you wake up at?
I'm around about 10. That's like
Okay.
my ideal, 10:30, maybe 11. Like it really depends on the night before. I do really try to hit yoga, so I'm averaging probably like 3 to 4 on on an intense week. Sometimes I hit more just because I want to. I really use yoga as a time to like refocus and just do something for myself. And then it's off to work. So, again, if you have R&D or if you have something you're working on, like I try to have maybe like an hour before I actually start my shift to eat and sit down and like map my week out or whatever it is. I get things on paper if I need to. And then I do a shift. So if I do a shift, you're usually on for about 8 to 10 hours. By the time I'm done, I'm probably pretty sleepy.
And so, sorry, so a shift is usually 8 to 10 hours, and so that means what time are you getting out of work
So
at?
the parlor will close at 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends. If you're either on the open shift or the closing shift, the latest I'll ever get out there is 3.
Okay.
So it's not crazy late. But that's kind of, my days do fluctuate because of that. And with Chirot, I try to at least have one day completely off of everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, I really try to hit the accounts where I can. So there are days that I do have to completely dedicate to Chirot and what that needs. So.
And so when you say hit accounts, you're like going to different establishments or?
Yeah. So just as a part-time brand ambassador within New York City, it's really focused on maintaining accounts and just being a presence. So
Okay.
that's why I said it's been really beneficial to me to be able to, meet a whole bunch of people, go to these bars I wouldn't usually go to, these restaurants I usually wouldn't go to, and then make connections and make relationships with buyers and bartenders especially. It works great to have both Churro and Dead Rabbit, because I visit Churro camps and I say, hey, like, I'm also a bartender. I actually work at Dead Rabbit, and that sells itself. They're like, oh, cool, that's so amazing. And then I also say, well, come see me and come sit at the bar, and then so it works both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one feeds into the other.
Absolutely, totally.
In a way, it's kind of like a dream setup, right? You're working at a great bar. You have a great brand ambassador gig on the side.
Yeah.
So you've kind of it's a great setup. But a lot of folks who are just starting, I imagine a lot of this is probably it'd be pretty overwhelming. They just kind of have no idea where to start. And so I'm wondering what advice you might offer someone who's just getting started, whether it's in bartending or the industry, or like what would you say to that person who's just like they want to be where you're at, they want the brand ambassador role, they want to work at a great bar in the world. What would you say?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that I ever did when I first started bartending was I made it my lifestyle. In a way that I integrated my job with my interests and what I would spend like my time with my free time,
Mm-hmm.
So even just when I started, like if I had time on the side, I'd be again attending any sort of like seminar or tasting or whatever it is, reading, spending the time, like if I'm on the internet, trolling or whatever it is that we all do on the internet and on our phones. I am actually still reading up a lot, on industry and what's happening. I've always been very involved in my community, and I've always been curious about other communities. So, I look out at bigger markets. I've always looked out and just seen what other people are doing. So I just make it a part of like my everyday. It doesn't have to be, it can be overwhelming, but then that's why you have to, I do something like yoga to just take myself out of it for an hour. So I don't think about it, and then I come back into it. But, at this point in my career where most of my friends are bartenders or brand ambassadors or, are in the industry, and, my personal like romantic relationship is with someone who's also a bartender. So it's all around me all the time. I would say, if you're just starting out and you want to get to this level, it's purely just working at it all the time. It's diligence, and it's patience, and a lot of it is humility. I've been so fortunate to meet really great people, but it's also just because I've shown that I'm like keen, and I'm also just kind, and I'm I just remain grounded. Sometimes I still feel like so tiny and so like little and like still a baby in New York City, and then I remember holy shit, like where am I? Like this is crazy. I still wake up all the time like this is wild. I can't believe this is my life. But I mean, if you just keep going at it. The greatest thing about the bar industry is that it's so social. There's so many resources for you out there, like whether it be your bar mentor at your own bar that you're working at, or their mentor, or the people that they know. It's just so connected, and there's such a network. And if you really, really take advantage of it, you have so many opportunities ahead of you. Everyone's always looking for someone who is excited and wants this,
Sure.
And I think those are the people who get the most rewarded in this industry, is those who really, really want it.
Totally. That's awesome. And you said you read a lot. Do you have like a most recommended book? Or
so
books?
right now, I mean, I am not. I would admit that I'm not the best drinks creator at Dead Rabbit. I've been able to execute menus before, but I think just at the level that we aim for Dead Rabbit cocktails is so high, and it's a totally new world for me. And for me, the things I've been reading lately have way more. They pertain way more to food and like flavor pairings, just because I'm really trying to work with that right now. So like, one of our things that we use the most is a flavor Bible, the vegetarian flavor Bible, because it has way more like the ingredients they'd be using. I'm reading more on like actually the science of flavor pairings and like why it actually works together. And then, I actually like reading like chef written books too, just to kind of understand where that is. So that's the kind of stuff I've been reading lately. In terms of like actual cocktail books that I found, have been good. There are a lot of really good ones right now, not to like shameless promo, but the Dead Rabbit books are awesome. And I do remember like when I first read the Drinks Manual by Sean and Jack, I remember thinking like, who are these people? Like especially Sean's story is incredible, and you're just like in awe of how this person came to be where he is now. And now I see him every day. It's pretty wild, but the book itself is super fascinating. You just see how they it makes sense. This is how you create one of the best bars in the world. And now, we have a new book, Mixology and Mayhem, which really delves into like the R&D process that we do at Dead Rabbit and like our bar setups and like why the parlor is the way it is. Like, it's so interesting. And I think that, if you are, especially if you're like a bar owner and you want to take it to the next level, reading that book is so cool. You really get it,
Is there like one or two big takeaways from that book that come like top of mind, like something for that bar owner who wants to take it to the next level?
I think one big thing is quality. It's just actually like your quality. So we do go into like a lot of the recipes that have been featured in menus, but also just showing like this is the prep that goes into this, and like it even highlights this is the back of house of the cocktail making. This is our prep guide. This is our juicer. Like, it just shows really the behind the scenes. And I think the biggest takeaway is just knowing it's such a big picture. It's everything that encompasses the experience at Dead Rabbit. There's so many little details that you just don't even know exist until you really read the book.
That's awesome. So I'd like to take a little bit of a different direction. We hear all the time about longevity in the industry, and you're a testament to the fact that a person can have a good, long, healthy career. And I'd love to hear a bit about what contributes to that longevity for you. A bit about why you stay in the game, what keeps you going, and ultimately what you love the most about bartending that keeps you ticking.
Yeah.
It's a big question.
Totally. I mean, I feel like every year probably I have a new goal and I set a new goal. Yeah. And I feel like maybe I don't achieve all of them, but I definitely come close and or achieve it in a different way. So ask me 7 years ago, would I ever think I'd be, in a senior bartender role at Dead Rabbit? Like, of course not. Of course not. I have had no idea. Even if I would still be bartending, but every year changes. Like, you meet new people, you go to different bars, you have totally different experiences, and it grows with each coming year. So, for me, this time last year, I just wanted to, when I started Dead Rabbit, I had to serve, you can't just like come into a bar position right away at a bar like that. So I was serving, and I was frustrated, and I wanted to bartend, and I just kept making that my goal. And then of course it happened, and now, okay, well, what's the next goal? Like, I want to bartend, but like, I want to take it to the next level. So, I got a brand job that really helped, and Dead Rabbit has been so good to me, and I'm only moving up, and I'm only doing better, and I'm only just like really claiming it as my own. And so then again, you think, well, what's next? Like, for me, I love New York, and I love being in it, and I think the community is crazy, and I think, I don't know, I feel like I feel like it always evolves, and that's why I like the industry and I like the people in it, is because they're always doing new things, and I feel like the more involved you get in the community, the more you kind of see that you can have an impact and you can actually influence. You know, like I did most imaginative bartender last year, and I didn't win, but I came really close. But even that, you know, it's like it did so much for my career, and it actually got my name out to a lot of people that, you know, I don't know, like I have no idea like how I would have ever been able to like come into contact with them, but you know, it's definitely helped me, and to know that there are people out there who look up to someone like me, or hear that like, oh my god, like she came from Canada, you know, in like a smaller city, and then all of a sudden now she's at Dead Rabbit, like that means a lot to me, and hearing that from other people means a lot to, you know, that also keeps me going, is okay, well, it was of course, if it's worth it, if, you know, I also help other people realize that it's not impossible. I have this conversation all the time with people who sit at the bar and I'm like, how? It's not impossible. You just got to do it, you know, just make it happen.
Totally. And sort of on the flip side of that, of, you know, kind of something that continuously fuels you, what do you find most challenging? Like what are the kind of the hardships that are there, you know? Would you be able to speak to that a bit?
Totally. I mean, I think one of the biggest ones for me, you know, I'm turning 30 in like 2 weeks. You know, like I think about, okay, well, where do I want this to really go? I'm very open in that. I really feel like, you know, again, like doors just keep opening. So I do feel confident that like I will figure out like my next big move. If it is, you know, like eventually I will want to come off the bar, you know, everyone does eventually. And, you know, I want to have a family, and I want to be like a very present mother. So like, that's kind of like, that was like my life goal, you know, and to make that happen is to take a step away from the bar and to figure out a new step. So that's a challenge, you know. It's like I'm finding, especially right now, like I'm finding so much success in my career right now, and it just keeps coming, and I'm so happy and so grateful, and I feel like, you know, like I deserve it. I'm like, yes, this is happening. But on the flip side of that is like, well, how much more do I want, you know? When am I going to say that this is enough, and this now is time to settle down and start a family? You know, that's my own personal struggle. And I think on the flip side of that as well, like just on the lighter side, is burning yourself out. You know, I take so many projects all the time, and it's because I'm thirsty and I'm hungry and I want it. And especially, you know, in New York, you gotta hustle. You gotta hustle. And being able to say no, I think a lot of people attest this. Being able to say no is so hard, and I'm only starting to realize that. So this year, I'm not going to be doing Most Imaginative Bartender, you know, because I just got too much on my plate. I also don't feel like it's the right move for me right now, and you know, so yeah, definitely that real life comes, like not real life, but like, you know, life, and taking care of yourself, and then remembering your values and stuff. That thing is the biggest.
Yeah, for sure. And what do you like? What do you think's missing from our industry? What would you like to? What do you want to see more of?
You know, I will say, I do feel like the industry is going in a really great direction in terms of like wellness and promoting, you know, bartenders to be more healthy and more balanced. And we talk about this all the time, work-life balance, and which is amazing. I really do think it's going in the right direction. I also think it's really amazing that bartenders are using the platform of, you know, the industry and like the power that it has, the outreach that it has, to do better things, to like, whether it be, you know, like searching for equality, or just even getting hard conversations out there and topics out there to like, you know, really be embraced and talked about, is really cool. I love it. In terms of what I think needs to like maybe change or develop is, you know, this is a little bit more on like where in my world and like what affects me is, I guess just kind of like the whole recognition thing. You know, I think it's really cool that awards are given out and lists are given out of the top bars and people are getting recognized and awarded all the time. I think that's amazing. And I think that it is really, you know, it helps your career for sure. But I think the pressure on it is a little bit too much. And I think people can take it too seriously. And I think people can just be very devastated if it doesn't happen. So I'll even say myself, like not winning MIB last year it crushed me, but I had to remember and realize that it's like, that's not like the end, you know what I mean? Like I wanted it so bad because I wanted, you know, to like prove myself and make it like, yes, I did this. I came out and I won and you know, but at the end of the day, I realized like that's not the have all be all, and there's a new winner the next year, and there's, you know, like these competitions can just get so intense and you just get so invested into them, and then when you don't win, it's just like, you know, I just feel like you need to really take the pressure off, and then also just see the benefits of just participating in general. You know, like you're getting out there, you're doing it. It's not in vain that you didn't win. So I don't know, especially, you know, the pressure on just bars winning awards too. Like I've got so many people who come into Dead Rabbit and they're like, oh, so you're not number one anymore. And it's just like, shut up. Like it's not about that, you know, it's about like your experience here and about us giving you the best experience we can. And like, if you want to judge us based on a list, that's your own thing. But, you know, try to like just view us as a bar and as like a place you come. And if you like it, then awesome.
Yeah. And you mentioned like wellness and all that stuff. And this is actually kind of a sidebar, but I'm curious about what you put on your feet. Like, what shoes do you wear when you're tending bar?
There's someone who's gonna kill me for saying this because she already gave me like so much shit about wearing them, but I wear Danskos. They're like hard clogs.
Yeah.
I like them because they have a little bit of a heel to them because I'm pretty tiny. And they're like durable. Like I've worn them since I started. They're so durable. I do also have like a second pair of like Crocs.
Crocs
are very comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like quite have the lift. But you know, behind Dead Rabbit, we all wear different shoes. You know, some of the bartenders wear like Docs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, shout out to Will Pasternak at Blacktail, who just loves his Crocs. The very colorful designer. But yeah, I wear clogs.
Dansko, why does your colleague give you shit for it?
Well, it's not my colleague. There is a lovely lady who, back in the San Antonio Cocktail Conference 2 years ago, I want to say, she gave us kind of like a body check-in seminar. Like, this is like, you know, you shouldn't be scooping your eyes like this because it's bad for you, or like you need to take care of like the way that you're aligned. It was awesome. But one thing she did, she looked at my feet and she's like, what are you wearing? She's like, Danskos are terrible. They don't, like, she was just saying, they don't move with your foot, so your arches get lazy. And so, okay. But then I kept wearing them.
Did she suggest an alternative? Did she suggest something else? Or?
Just that anything that's comfortable with a back, like it has to have a back behind your heel, and then movement. It just needs to have movement.
Okay.
And obviously, like, yeah, you need something very comfortable. But also, like, for me, it's just structure. Like, I like to be supported. But you know, I hope she doesn't see this.
Just couple more questions. Would you? A lot of people are really curious about, you know, earnings in different cities and different bars. I'm wondering to what extent you'd be comfortable sharing any numbers around earnings of whether it's you or people around you or just your demographic in New York City and cocktail bars. Yeah, anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, New York City is awesome. You can make a lot of money here. I will say, though, that in all honesty, working in the cocktail parlor at the Dead Rabbit, yes, we still make money, and definitely the most money I've ever made bartending in any of my jobs. But if you were to compare what we make in the parlor to, say, like a more high volume bar in New York, it's incomparable. Like, you just can't. We make pretty standard. I would say like what we make is what you would make serving in a restaurant, you know? So like $200 to $300 in that area per night in tips.
That's US.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would say like that's like a good, yeah, like I feel like most like servers in nice restaurants will make about the same, you know. But when you're talking like high volume bars, like if you're working in the tap room at the Dead Rabbit, you're making cash. But I mean, it's just it's the difference of the type of bartending you're doing, right? They're pumping it out, and those girls are running. And you know, in the parlor, we do provide a totally different experience where we do, you know, it's definitely more paced, and it's catered to you, and it's completely like so methodical, and which is awesome. And we definitely work at the parlor for the love of it, you know. Yeah, of course we need money to like live, but it is definitely like it's passionate bartenders who want to be working in that style of service. So.
And just so it's clear, the parlor is like the cocktail bar, right?
Yeah, so the Dead Rabbit is comprised of three levels. The third floor is a private event space, but the second floor is the cocktail parlor. And just recently, we opened up a extension to it. So we opened basically like a second room to the parlor 3 nights of the week, which really helps. And it kind of alleviates that wait time. But yeah, the second floor is just the cocktail parlor, and that's where you'll find like all those super elaborate cocktails and just like all the cheater bottles and all this like crazy bar setup. And then the first floor is the tap room, which is awesome. It's, you know, kind of like your idea of an Irish pub, more beers on draft, still really great cocktail program, but like made to execute faster and like made for efficiency. And just a totally different vibe, right? It's way more casual, come and go. It's awesome. It's fun. It's like that's where I hang out. But they also have an extension room, so it's quite massive. Dead Rabbit's pretty massive right now. Technically houses 5 bars in its entirety. But yeah, that's the biggest difference, and that's why there is a difference of, you know, your hours, the kind of bartending you're doing, and then also the money.
And what would you say is the one thing that, because I imagine Dead Rabbit's a really efficient bar. Well, I mean, I don't know, but I'm wondering if you could speak to like the one or two things that Dead Rabbit does differently from other bars that just makes it more enjoyable to work at, or more efficient, more optimized, anything like that.
Totally. I think one of the greatest things is yes, so much thought has been put into our technique and our setup and the way we approach R&D and the way we approach like just, you know, the whole experience of the parlor. And even in the tap room, you know, like with the extension, we were able to kind of basically build that bar out to be a little bit more like the parlor. So it is, you know, quite efficient. It's set up beautifully. In the like examples for like the stations that I work in the parlor, you know, the way that the bar is set up is purely just for like body movement. Like you're really trying to not work in an inefficient way or that's bad to your body. So more or less, I'm always moving side to side rather than like working around, and everything is just always it's set up the way it should be. We work with a lot of cheater bottles, so that being basically pouring any of our syrups, juices, spirits, liqueurs into smaller bottles just for efficiency.
And what cheater bottles do you guys use?
We just use like these, I don't know, like little 250s. Okay. They're all the same, so they all just line up on the rail of the bar. And so that's our mise en place. That's, you know, we use so many ingredients that you have to use cheaters and you have to have it readily accessible to you. Our tools are hung, our tools are, you know, placed in certain areas where it's easier to grab them, easier to get them. It's just, it's so thought out, and it's such a school of thought now that that's just the way we approach everything. So even if, for example, if we were flipping the menu, yes, it takes us some time to get used to where everything is, but because we understand the whole method that goes behind setting that bar, we understand it way more. So you're more or less working on muscle memory rather than like, oh, where would I get this syrup? Where would I get that? It's just more so like, you know, people always ask the cheater bottles, do you like know what these are they labeled? And I was like, well, first, yeah, they're labeled because we're not stupid. If they weren't labeled, we'd be sitting there being like, oh my god, did we switch up these two dark Amaros? Like, of course they're labeled. But
do you guys use a label maker?
Yeah, label maker. But over time, you get to know exactly where these bottles are without looking, and that's the efficiency of it, right? There should if it's always in the same place, you should always be grabbing it, and that's what it should be. So I think it's a fun, really fun bar to work at. It's like you're always thinking in your mind, what's the best way to do this ticket? What's the best way to make this round? Like it's never boring. A shift is never boring.
Yeah,
it's always really like geeky and cool, and I love talking about it too because like I just think it's the coolest.
that's awesome. Okay, and just one last thing. What's your favorite tool and why? Do you have like a specific tool that you love?
I have always loved bar spoons.
Yeah.
I've dabbled in all like the weird decorative ones and like all the crazy like cool designs of bar tools or bar spoons, but my favorite always just comes down to like a regular teardrop, like that medium size. I love that spoon. It's just so useful. I've always had this thing with like Simon. When I first started working for him, he made me stir water and ice for like an hour until I got my like perfect stir right.
Yeah.
So it's always like a massive joke, but I do actually love stirring cocktails. I just love like having to have the accuracy and like the touch on it of like knowing when something's actually like, obviously you're tasting too, but like just knowing when something's like perfect the way it should be. But also from working at Dead Rabbit, I have really loved working with like an ice tapper.
Oh yeah.
And an ice
to mold the ice.
The ice tapper to break like cubes, so like smack it and it just like cracks the cubes that we use cold press, so we just cracks it, and we use that for like jump starting stirred up cocktails. So just get our like smaller bits of ice and then top with cold draft, and then you're kind of using that to jumpstart. And then also because we use large format blocks that we break down for cocktails, I love that. So I've never really worked with like an elaborate ice program such as like Dead Rabbit, so it's really fun
and
really
do you guys get ice delivered to you?
Yes, we do get big blocks delivered to us, but we did very recently acquire our own machines that we will be using, and we are actually will be trained on.
Is it a Kleinbell?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah.
Wait, I have one more question.
Okay.
Do you think you have like a Sam Casuga sort of secret power that kind of like sets you apart? Or I know you mentioned you work hard, you're diligent, all those things, but is there something that's kind of like your like hidden weapon?
Yeah, I do. I actually do think that like being kind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just at the end of the day, I don't want to say I try to be kind. I mean, you do kind of have to try sometimes with some people, but I just try to be pleasant to be around and kind and caring and and just being a good energy around people.
Yeah.
And I think that has always set me apart, and it's always been something that like people I've worked for have said something about, and that's the kind of person I want to be remembered. Totally. To be like, oh, I worked with Sam Casuga, like it was so nice, she was so kind, and and especially I'm very aware that the position I hold, not only at Dead Rabbit, but like in our whole bartending community, it's like I'm very grateful for it, but I'm also very aware that like I hold a position where I do have people who look up to me and want to like want to talk to me about things or want to get advice, and like just being kind and humble and like giving them the time and being that person for them. I take that very seriously. I feel like I've been mentored before, and I'm so grateful for it, and Simon's still my mentor to this day, but just I really feel that kindness and humility and actually giving time to people is very important.
For sure, and I think you're definitely a model of all of that, so well done. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
My
And
pleasure. That was
yeah.
so fun.